This is Radio 4. It's 6:30.
We present the news quiz with your chairman, Barry Took.
Hello and welcome to another airing of Life's Curiosities. But before we meet the teams, we have a top story from the Shropshire Star, read by Catriona Young.
Sherry Milligan, a judge at the Western Washington Fair, saved a prize hen which nearly drowned by performing mouth-to-beak resuscitation. She came to the rescue after the sultan hen passed out in a punch bowl full of soapy water as Daniel Burnson, aged 12, was explaining his chicken cleaning technique.
You should never have used the scrubbing brush. Anyway, thanks to Siobhan O'Tierney of Powys for sending us that. Well, time to introduce the panel now. Unfortunately, Richard Ingrams and Ian Hislop can't be with us this week as they had some letters to write. So instead, please give a warm welcome to Mark Stein and Michael White. Meanwhile, lurking on my left, two men of many letters, Austin Mitchell and Alan Corran. We open round one with a cautionary tale from The Times.
A Defence Ministry civil servant who drove it up to 80 miles an hour in the wrong direction on the M3 and who subsequently ran over a policeman who tried to stop him was banned from driving for 5 years and fined £5,000 by Guildford Crown Court yesterday. The court was told that when finally stopped and questioned by PC Alex Kinnear, Derek Parsley asked, "What have I done?" The officer replied, "You've run me over for a start." Parsley told police that he had a suspicion he was in the wrong lane, but said it was dark and he was disorientated, but was due to collect his new glasses the next day.
And many thanks to Anne Nethercott of Twickenham for supplying us with that. Mark, your question. Which team found itself going into extra time by the atomic clock?
I'm a bit flummoxed by this one, but that in itself is a good Richard Ingram's impression. I shall now, in the best Ingram style, do you have any idea of
Oh, I might.
That's the Ian Hislop impression. For an encore, we do chicken cleaning.
Older, but not necessarily balder. Is it not the question of the UN team which has been stuck in a Baghdad car park? You've all had that experience. You can't find the bloody ticket, and they won't let you out. The UN team has been stuck, and at the time of talking, I think they're still stuck, and Saddam Hussein won't let them go until they hand over all their credit cards because he wants to buy some new weapons. And they've got information received about the whereabouts of his extremely unpleasant pieces of hardware.
Right.
I have a theory, actually, about Saddam Hussein, that the Democrats are going to run him as their presidential candidate because he's the only man who can beat George Bush.
You almost deserve a bonus for that. It's a bit early for bonuses. This refers to events surrounding UN inspection teams in Iraq who set out to prove that Saddam Hussein is again trying to build a nuclear arsenal. The UN teams were arrested after trying to take away files claimed by the Iraqis to contain confidential personnel records, so confidential they've been hidden in files marked Invoices for Payment British Plutonium Limited. Michael, having done so well with that question, here's yours. Where have they been getting sheepish about imports again?
This is a reference to Sir Ian McKellen's historic visit to number 10 Downing Street. in order to seek posthumous rehabilitation of Sir Laurence Olivier and Danny Kaye. I wanted to get that one in first this week.
Well, that's good enough for me. I don't think you can usefully...
Officer and a gentleman. No, as a matter of fact, shortly after Sir Ian visited number 10, Mr. Major, displaying a larger sense of humour than we had hitherto suspected, invited Madame Edith Croissant, or Croissant, as those of us breakfast addicts call her, to visit him at number 10. She was the lady, if you remember, cast nasturtiums upon the virility of the Brits. Right. And I was outside number 10 at the time. When she came out with Mr. Major, they were in there rather a long time, it has to be said, for the benefit of the prurient. And some hooligan from one of the tabloids said, "What about the British homosexuals then, Madam Cresswell?" And to her credit, she changed the subject to French lamb, which is what you're talking about.
I knew we'd get there eventually.
And Ingram's takes much longer than this when he's here, and you don't interrupt him. But to return to the French lamb, that the French farmers have developed what many who drive through France consider to be a pleasing habit of not only providing steak and frites on the roadside, but offering agneau rôti and a cooking British lamb.
That's right.
In its lorry. En papillote, I think they call it. En croûte. And serving it up. And we're very grateful because they're not paying for it. But
yes, I think I'm jolly sure there's an answer in there somewhere. As the Battle of Mutton raged, British Agriculture Minister John Gummer reacted angrily and immediately flew to Brussels on the basis...
Yeah, they had him for lunch.
on the basis that when a war starts, if in doubt, invade Belgium. This is absolutely right. Austin, your question now. Whose tendencies led to a suspended sentence? It's right.
Oh, come on.
Right.
We both answered this question in the Labour Party.
I thought this was the kangaroo court assembled from neighbours that the Labour Party ruled on the fate of Mr Nellist and Mr Fields. That's right. And decided that Mr Nellist can address the Labour Party conference next week with a megaphone outside like Ian Paisley.
That's right.
Thank you. It's not fair, you know. If they're playing the part of private eye, they shouldn't be answering questions. It's a very unreasonable
You did
balance
a
on this
brilliant
quiz.
Richard Ingram's impression with your first reaction to that question. that was excellent.
Let's not argue about
Excuse me,
this.
Chairman. Telegram for Mr Mitchell. He's just been suspended from the Labour Party. Making jokes about it.
Two errant MPs are currently in political limbo. Ideal training should they decide to defect to the Liberal Democrat. Alan, guess what?
Got my eye on you, nothing slipping by, watching everything you do like a spy. I come here every night.
Well, that was called Spy, and your question is, who gave away the secret that he was one over the four?
Yes, the audience is groaning as well they might. This is the 18th man. This is Mr. Cairncross.
Quite right.
Not quite as nice as Mr. Mann. He didn't get a Spitfire, but I think they flew a MiG-21 over him when he appeared in his garden in France. But I think a Russian actually blew the whistle on him. His other half, his Danny Kaye, blew the whistle on him.
It comes to something when Soviet spies are being fingered by the KGB.
Cairncross lives in retirement in France, where he passes on valuable information about English lamb movements. You're very kind. More than I deserve. Anyway, Mark and Michael are really in the private eye tradition. They've got 3, but Alan and Austin have got 4. That's the end of the first round. Round 2 takes off with a story from the Stroud Observer.
Residents of a Quedgley housing estate told parish councillors this week how teenagers were making their lives a misery by performing handbrake turns in the road, which put them in fear of going out at night. They're also to tell the chief constable of the problems and complain that Quedgley is inadequately policed. Council Chairman Terry Long said, "We have an allocation of 2.8 policemen, but unfortunately last week 2 were sick."
Thanks to Nigel Gilland of Gloucestershire for that one. Mark, your question again. Where did the boss's lack of profits turn out to be profitable for him after all?
Oh, this is... I don't quite understand what all this was about, actually, because this is British Aerospace, which is one of these companies that the more money you lose for them, the bigger the cheque you get at the end.
The interesting thing is the rise of Sir Graham Day, isn't it? He'll be head of everything shortly.
Well, I'm very pleased with this. My compatriot, he is actually a Canadian, and now he joins the list of, 4 famous Canadians. Captain Kirk from Star Trek.
Will come
Yes.
and you'll have everything.
It's Professor Roland
It is
Smith.
absolutely right. You're quite right. This is British Aerospace Chairman Sir Roland Smith, who's been forced to resign following large losses made by his group, and is to receive a golden handshake tucked in with his P-45. British Aerospace, who manufacture parts for the Airbus, that's the airline you wait all day for, and then 3 come along together. Will be replaced temporarily by the ubiquitous Sir Graham Day from the subsidiary Rover. First time a Rover man has overtaken anything in years. Unfair. Michael, who went west and preached unity with the East? It's a woman that we know well.
Oh, God, her.
Famous poet.
Ah, yes. yes. I was hoping you would ask me about the Sultan of Brunei, who attempted to...
No, he's talking about Margaret Thatcher and bloody answer it.
No.
I'm going to have to...
we knew.
I was working up.
Let
to
him do the
Margaret
one
Thatcher.
about Brunei, and you can do the one about
Sultan
the
of Brunei.
QE2. Come on.
Sultan of... It's a wonderful
I'll
story.
shave again in a minute.
About someone called Margaret Thatcher, who's been doing such fine electioneering work. She's single-handedly transformed the opinion polls, unfortunately just when the Tories had got back into the lead. Mrs. Thatcher, speaking in Washington, called for Britain to loosen ties with Europe, using her grip on reality as a model.
No, this is, I can't, this
don't need
Maggie bashing is going to... A recent poll showed that 7% of people want Mrs. Thatcher back as Prime Minister, which is...
And they're on the Labour
That would
Party.
be.
That's...
They need a
is,
strong hand in Poland.
Which is less than... 10% of people are supposed to be gay, according to Sir Ian McKellen. That's clearly why the Tories have decided to switch and go for the gay vote rather than the Thatcher vote. And in return, Mrs. Thatcher's fans will have a minority programme on Channel 4, so it's all worked out.
If Mrs. Thatcher had still been Prime Minister, we wouldn't have had this queue of people traipsing into Downing Street like this week. It's been positively indecent.
Well, I know.
Why don't we turn this into 2 programmes?
Or even one. Alan, your question now. Can you solve the equation ET plus YT equals minus 1 billion?
What? No, of course not. ET
ET plus
thing from outer
YT
space.
equals minus 1 billion.
And YT is youth training.
Yep.
And my friend here, it's the Rosetta Stone. Bloody hell, Ramesses II is dead.
That was going to be a question in the next round.
Mellor? A letter from Mellor?
Right.
To Howard? To Howard
For God's sake, tell it. Austin.
This is a letter which was leaked by the Labour Party, who seem to receive all internal government communications these days. They go direct through the internal mail to Walworth Road, where they're unread for months. Like membership applications.
Well, if they write like that, I'm not surprised.
David Mellor.
You do a lot of these memos.
It makes a lot of sense in Grimsby.
I write my own posters in Grimsby. That's why the vote's been going down steadily. David Mellor, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, having taken refuge from screwing up ITV, has written a letter to Michael Howard, the Employment Secretary, telling him to turn all these layabouts or doing employment schemes for stacking supermarket shelves out on the streets by cutting $1 billion from the budget.
Don't tell me, tell him.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not the slightest interest in this. Like all sensible people, he wants to know.
I don't. I've got it all written down in front of me.
It's more than I have.
Under the new proposals, the unemployed will be expected to pay for their own training, and if they can't afford it, then they should get a job and start saving up. While school leavers, who are already excluded from claiming income support, will have to wait until they're old enough to be registered unemployed for 2 years before they can put their names down to be excluded from an adult retraining scheme. We voted them in. And I come to you with the astounding news that at the end of the second round, the scores are tied at 7-all. On to round 3 now with this explanatory passage from a Ford Motor Company service book.
The Ford service plan for your vehicle is based on 10,000-mile and 30,000-mile services. The first 10,000-mile service should be carried out at 10,000 miles or 12 months from registration, and subsequent 10,000-mile services every 10,000 miles or 12 months from the previous service, other than when a 30,000-mile service is scheduled. The first 30,000-mile service is carried out at 30,000 miles from registration or 12 months after the second 10,000-mile service, with subsequent 30,000-mile services every 30,000 miles or 12 months after the second of 2 previous 10,000-mile services.
I hope that's all clear to everybody. And thanks to B.D. Fielding of Leeds for enlightening us. Apparently he drives a Skoda. Mark, which bookworm has made a prize fool of himself?
The Booker Prize is out, and I love the way literary folk always say, "Oh, it's a very interesting list this year." And actually, the list is always more interesting than the books, which is what's happened this year, because one of the judges has walked out in a fury, and it's Nicholas Mosley, not to be confused with his father, who is Oswald Mosley, who walked out of the 1932 Booker Prize because Mein Kampf wasn't on the shortlist.
He set fire to the 1932 Booker Prize.
No, that was at the celebration. They all had a big bonfire that year. And Melvin passed round the crisps. No, that's it, the Booker Prize.
Michael, it's your turn for a little music.
We should see her in the dangerous chick with her hair in a bun and her fake pebble thick. There's no makeup on her face and her lips are drawn thin. And you're thinking in the streets if you knew where she's been. Just when school time is over, she lets down her hair. With a bike to her leg, she likes to fly through the air. After day work is finished, every freak.
Fastly.
Good gamemanship over there by Corin.
I did. I noticed that. But you give me the answer. Or Mark will give you the answer.
It refers to...
No, if you say it, I lose a point.
Oh, do it? Okay,
I'm going to
say
say it. I can read.
Right. Well, do I get an extra half point for my spelling then?
He'll penalise us if we don't get our act together.
Okay.
It's about a woman called the Duchess of York.
No, it isn't.
It isn't? Oh, curses. She's not been shortlisted for the Booker Prize.
It's not the Duchess... The Marchioness of Blandford.
Yes. Well, Duchess of York, Marchioness of Blandford, they're all toffs to me.
Yes.
No, you were right with the Marchioness of Blandford. Can you press on from that?
Can we press on? Slowly we're getting there. Michael, do you know anything? She's known as Becky Blandford.
That's no good to me. I'll give you one. Getting blood out of a stone. Alan, you know this one.
She was caught speeding and got a remarkably light sentence.
That's right.
Yes.
£16.
That's right.
£16.
Any advance on £16?
That's why I got mixed up with the Duchess of York. It's the same thing.
Lady Blandford admitted to exceeding the speed limit by 7, but denied she was driving as if she owned the road, even though she does. Alan, who's been on ice for a considerable time?
Oh, it's not this bloke. I was hoping this bloke... We're going to have this bloke Goosens, who came through customs with 9 parrots sewed into his raincoat. No, it's a wonderful story. It's a Belgian who came in through Heathrow. He had nine parrots sewed into his raincoat.
Belgian, eh?
Belgian, yeah. Well, that's the only race we can make fun of now. They can't even... You can make Belgian jokes. No, it isn't him. This is a bloke found in Austria. They turn up on the news quite regularly. There's one called Pete, about 4 years ago, who turned up in Shropshire, and he looked like a kipper as well. This is a man who's 4,000 years old. He is a Bronze Age man. They haven't actually specified at the time of going to microphone whether he's just a Bronze Age person, because they didn't find anything under his trousers which was stuffed with straw. They did, however, find his trousers which were leather, almost indistinguishable from the bloke himself. But anyway, there's this flat, extremely brown smoked thing that's turned up in Austria. Waldheim says he knows nothing about it.
And how's an alibi?
No, but he's suffering from Dr. Waldheimer's disease, which means you forget everything that happened during the war. But anyway, they found this stiff in a glacier.
Which means of identification, Barbara Cartland is being flown in to examine the body. As there's a possibility it may be her first husband. And if you're listening, Miss Cartland, it's all a joke. And if you're not listening, scored at the end of round 3, ladies and gentlemen. Mark and Michael 10, but Alan and Austin have crept into the lead with 11. It's over to Catriona now for the start of round 4.
Pornographic magazines were visible in a shop window as Rupert the Bear walked past the first episode of a new television cartoon series. They went unnoticed not only by Rupert, but also by thousands of viewers and monitors for TVS, which bought the Canadian-made series for £4 million. The magazines, Matrons in Leather, A Guide to... I knew that would happen. I knew it.
She was up early.
Thank you, thank you.
So was Rupert, by the way.
No,
Everybody, shh.
I can do this. The magazines, Matrons in Leather, A Guide to Knickers, and Spank... Shut up! If you won't behave, I can't do this. Right, I'll do it once more. It's going to work. The magazines, Matrons in Leather, A Guide to Knickers, and Spanking appeared for only a few moments, but were spotted by a viewer recording Tuesday's episode for his 5-year-old grandson.
Beautifully read, Catriona. I would like to thank Paul Arnold for supplying us with the item. Mark, will you now listen to this, please? The question is, why is it all Japanese to London's theatre-goers?
Oh, thank goodness for the nearest thing to a decent piece of music after all this super funkorama, get-down and boogie new-look Radio 4 stuff we've had in the rest of the programme. I think this is probably about as good as it gets. This is the Japanese version of Matrons in Leather, which has just opened at the Dominion. Sorry, I'm still confused about it. I think
Ingrams wouldn't have known this.
No,
He wouldn't have wanted to know.
It's a popular music, youthful young person's youth training scheme sort of question, because it's about a piece of music that's 20 years old, which is right there at the top of the charts for Richard. And it's a Japanese production of Matrons in Leather that's currently playing at the Dominion Theatre.
You're quite right, Mark. The show will be open for 6 days only, failing a theatrical disaster, which would result in a suddenly extended run. Austin, your question now. What is selling like hot tapes? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
I can feel, my ear can feel you looking at me.
Yes, I am.
I cannot...
Don't look away like that.
I cannot face you, Austin.
I mean, what would you think to be illicit that you bought on video, but you can now get it legitimate?
Kinnock.
Not Kinnock, not
Contributions to the Conservative Party.
The real answer is you can now get sex on the government.
Ah, yes, I know what you can get. You can get the Guide to Married Joy, which has just been passed as viewable by 85-year-olds.
Well, I think I'll
It's the
split them
joys
up.
of going to bed early with a warm cup of cocoa.
It's a DIY video.
Yeah, that's right. It is absolutely
Actually,
right.
that's in it. That's one of the things that is one of
That
the
is quite
range of
right.
activities that is illustrated
It's
in
exactly
the...
right. I read.
Ingrams wouldn't have known that.
Anyway, Alan, your last question.
Thank God.
Our timing is still as impeccable as ever, and we're 85-year-olds each. Alan, why would climbing the rubbish mountain be costly?
I've absolutely no idea. I mean, this is probably because there is so much filth on Mount Everest that it costs you an enormous amount. This is an extremely boring question. Were you a Belgian with 9 parrots, and your ambition was to take all these little things up with their 9 little flags and put the Belgian flag on top of Mount Everest, it would be extremely difficult. Because there is crap. There are old MacDonald had a burger, and there's all sorts of junk that other visiting parties to Everest have left strewn around.
This refers to Nepal's attempt to stop litter piling up on the roof of the world by increasing the charge for climbing Mount Everest to £6,000 a go. Well, that's put me off. The Nepalese government hope demand will drop off, so to speak. Each expedition leaves, on average, 1,100 pounds of waste, or 1 pound of general rubbish, and 1,099 pounds of uneaten Kendal mint cake. The next attempt on the summit will be made by a team of local dustbin men led by Sherpa Cleansing. It's like a miracle. It's like a miracle. Anyway, we've reached the more or less the end, but before I give you the final scores, it's time for the team cuttings. Mark, have you got something for us?
Yeah, well, I've got something from the Daily Mirror. A shy old lady whose house caught fire called out the brigade with a note delivered by a neighbour. The 91-year-old didn't want to make a fuss with a 999 call, so her friend, another elderly woman, toddled half a mile to the fire station, only to find it empty and locked. She popped the SOS note through the letterbox and toddled back. Now you know what happened when Michael's toupee caught fire.
Right, Michael, tell us something.
The Daily Express trying particularly hard on Tuesday, it had an opinion poll, and I would just want to see whether it strikes you the same way as it strikes me. Major's poll knife edge, big 2 neck and neck in election countdown. Labour and the Tories were running neck and neck last night in a dramatic countdown to election D-Day. According to an exclusive Express poll, the two parties would be level pegging in Parliament if the voters delivered their verdict today. And then you look at the poll and it says Conservatives 39, Labour 41.
Austin, what have you brought for us?
Well, this comes from the Chelmsford Weekly News, and it concerns Mrs. Edna Martin, who was 21 stone 9 pounds and embarrassed about stepping outside. Now she feels like a new woman, just like me. Once I went on the sin a day diet after joining last September, I never put on an ounce. Now I'm trying to get down to 12 stone.
Well, it's been a bad week for cuttings, obviously. It's a bit of bad luck that only Alan has brought us a cutting this week.
This one is from the Luton Evening Post. It says, club operators know a box office hit when they see one. And that's why Jim Davidson is appearing in Luton tomorrow, for one night only.
Well done, well done. Well, let me give you the final scores now. It's been a neck-and-neck competition, as you can gather, this week. But the final scores, Alan and Austin, are 14, but Mark and Michael are this week's winners with 15. Well played. Before we go, you might be interested in this snippet from The Sun, sent in by Trevor Calder of Dunfermline.
A 2-mile tailback on the M27 near Southampton was caused by Department of Transport officials quizzing drivers about traffic jams.
And with that, goodbye.
Taking part in the news quiz were Mark Stein, Michael White, Alan Corran and Austin Mitchell. The chairman was Barry Took and the news was read by me, Katriona Young. The programme was written by Ian Pattinson and Robert Fraser-Steele. The producer was Diane Macias.